Welcome to another episode of the Emulsion Podcast, a show for chefs who want to think better, increase their performance, and believe that it's possible to take lessons from what others have learned. I am your host, Justin Khanna, and I'd love to continue the conversation with you from this episode on my online Circle community. There you can share your 2 cents and learn about supporting the show on justinkhanna.com/support. For your convenience, it's also linked up in the description of your podcast player. Let's get into the show. What is up, folks? My guest today is Aarthi Sampath. She has beat Bobby Flay. She has worked at the Michelin-starred Janoon in New York City, ran the food truck here in Seattle called Kukri, and she's now the head chef at Chinese Tuxedo in New York. Aarthi and I met when a restaurant real estate friend of mine actually brought her as a +1 to one of my farmers market dinners that I used to do. I think I've covered that on the channel before, and we basically hit it off from there. And this was a great opportunity to get some insane value points from her on the record. This was one of those interviews where it ended. I was like, can we just publish this right now? But, you know, just to catch up with her as well was fantastic, and to hear how she's been doing in pandemic times. If you enjoyed this interview, I highly recommend you queue up my conversation with Natalie Popcave to learn more about launching your own thing, creating online, and building a brand. If at any point you would like to pause and check out Aarthi online or any of the specific linkable things that we discuss, please do check out the show notes below in the description or on justinkhanna.com/media. Let's get into this interview. Thanks for being with me.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on the show. It's really a delight to have you, and I hope you're well.
Yeah, thank you so much for thinking of me.
Totally. It's well, when we met, I thought your path was so interesting, and as an interesting place to start, I thought that I would, Food Network and Food TV in particular has gotten. I've heard so many polarizing stories, right? People who say, I had this opportunity and I got all this notoriety, or I got access to an audience, and it ultimately gave me the opportunity to blank, launch a grocery brand, launch my restaurant, do a food truck, do whatever. And then I've also heard the opposite end, where I got this call from Food Network, they told me to be on this thing, and through the editors editing my piece wrong, or they made me look like a fool, or I got knocked out too early and it was actually harmful for my reputation. And I think that there's a lot of, in the age of Instagram, right, where everybody seems to have their own presence online, that's how Food Network, at least from what I've noticed, picks people to be on these shows now. It's like, if you have an audience, they'll... So I guess to the person who maybe has just been reached out to by Food Network or is considering applying for an opportunity on TV, what advice do you have for those people?
Firstly, you've known me. Do you think I am a conniving bitch?
Zero. No. The last words I would use to describe you.
So I was called back for the show, and for like one of those masters kind of chopped episode, and I got knocked out in the first round. And I think I was like kind of upset, or they definitely showcased me as that woman who's the angry brown woman, and who says, I just said like, yeah, it's the boys club, and then they kind of just wrapped the story around that. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and then I got like messages on Instagram. I literally was crying. I had tears just like falling down my eyes when I would read messages like, yeah, serves you right, you're not as talented as XYZ, and you are you don't have half as much of the talent as he did. And from that experience, I also understood that the memory of the viewer is so limited. Like a week after that, I was again back to normal, and it definitely hurt me for that moment. But then people forget. So I think chefs shouldn't take these shows very seriously. And yes, it is very crucial for you to understand that all these game shows it's a game show. It is not judging your food capabilities. Yes, of course. I mean, you are going to try and make delicious food. However, the time can get the best of you. It's 20 minutes, like for God's sake. It's 30 minutes for God's sake. Some of those ingredients can be insane. Like for the last show, I got caviar, I got like um, pizza pockets, I got eggplant, and I got some other weird ingredients. So I had
Sure.
no idea what to do with it.
Well, it
So
also
that
doesn't
stumped me.
pose a generally good reflection on the things that you and I as chefs actually value, right? Like being able to
Exactly,
run a business,
exactly.
being able to talk to a team, or coach a team, lead a team. You
Hmm.
actually be able to write a menu, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
all these sorts of
absolutely.
things. So
It's a game. It's just a
there you
little
go.
game show. It's like going on Jeopardy or something. That's pretty much what it is. And um, yeah, my advice would definitely be mindful with your words. Try to be as positive, even if you think like it's not. But if you want to drive a point, it's a great place as well. So you don't know what they're going to edit or what they're going to do at the end of it. So um,
One thing
yeah.
I've seen you do really well on the back of that whole thing is kind of,
Hmm.
and I've seen this with other people who have competed as well, is this sense of being able to cultivate an audience of your own. Because those are the people that ultimately, in a situation like your horror story, they're going to have your back, because they know you, versus the
Yeah.
people who, you know, if you're trying to build the audience from Food Network or, any sort of media project, whether
Hmm.
on First We Feast or any sort of YouTube concept or on
Hmm.
someone's podcast, like the value, and that's like these secondary motivations that I give to people
Hmm.
for building an audience online. Because whether or not it's Food Network, it could be a food critic, who happens to
Hmm.
go eat at your place, or an influencer who eats your food and
Right.
happens to interpret it in a wrong way, and they try to slander you. You can have all this backlog of content of like, this is what I was actually trying to do, and those
Hmm.
people will have your back. So, can you talk a little bit about like, obviously most of us, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, most of us chefs who end up creating content aren't media trained. We didn't go to film school, we don't have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
degree
that's
in
right.
marketing. So like, what has been valuable for you in creating content online as a chef?
Um, I have to I have to say like hours of scrolling as well. Major addiction that I'm trying to get out of.
Keeping it real, I love it.
Yeah. So I think getting inspiration from watching others, and I think it's also like timed. I think the biggest like challenge now is like reels. It's 30 seconds. How do you create a cohesive recipe in 30 seconds? So it cannot be over like six or seven ingredients. Um, your food has to just look beautiful. And at the end of the day, sometimes I also think if you're a chef who does like extensive, elaborate cooking, um, you're maybe sometimes it's not all you may not have like 100,000, 200,000 followers, but even the if you're doing like the content that you're supposed to do, like showcases who you are and the right people see it. That's what I think about my page. I'm not there to only just have followers who are probably not helping me getting new gigs. It's also my portfolio because when I send my resume, I also have my Instagram on it. So big companies, I get hired all the time. With we all get hired all the time with the Instagram. And now that if I put like if I do the whole new nature cereal on it, it does not really add value to who I am as a chef. So when I try to create content that I believe in, that I am, um, and if I mean, I'm trying to be as consistent as I can. Of course, that's important, but I think you have to stay true to who you are and who your target is.
So much wisdom in that, from not just even your first point. Like, it seems like this thing that's like, oh well, I just look at what other people are doing, but you can't, there's no Instagram university, because whatever curriculum they set would be outdated in 24 months, so you
You're
actually,
right.
like, you actually have to look and see what's working, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, the chefs that slap their food just tends to do well, whether you or I like it or not. Like people who,
Oh,
are
really?
just violent with their ingredients, like it happens to do well. And it's like you can take that or leave that, but you
Right,
can't not acknowledge that it's working. To your point
right,
of like
right.
I'm acknowledging that certain types of presentations or certain lengths of food, or even like the aesthetic details that you're noticing, it's like
Mm-hmm.
all of that is important, and then to your other point of um, whenever there's so many people who just like they'll reach out, or in meetings they'll say like, oh, I saw this on your Instagram. You just don't notice that, and I do it instinctively too. If I'm looking up a restaurant, I don't go to their
Mm-hmm.
Google page, find their website. I just look them up on Instagram, And so
Instagram, right.
it's almost become this, like you said, it's your portfolio slash business card slash, So if you're looking at it as this professional thing, how can you make it the most? It's like this little thing that's always living and working for you on the internet. It's like this little like secretary front desk thing. Anybody who
Yeah,
comes and
right,
interacts with you, that's the first thing that they notice. And how can you make
right.
that the most valuable thing as possible? So I, I know that you brought it up as a point, and as we're talking about, I was wanting to get your take on Indian food, just cooking Indian food in general, because it's something that I know that you immensely lean towards and kind of push out into the forefront. And I've been, and then you brought up that you wanted to talk about expanding into out like cuisines
Yeah,
outside of Indian food, but I'm the opposite, right? So my background is in like modern American French food, but then like my
right,
dad's from Delhi, and so I'm trying to like go the opposite way,
right.
like try to get more into it. So I was curious if you and I could riff on that for a little bit, as far as like um, how do you see the current state of Indian food as it's being kind of like brought into more mainstream, and then other areas of India are getting more love that
Mm-hmm.
they previously weren't getting prior to now, and then of course we'll go from there into speaking about you
Right.
branching out.
So, believe it or not, the reason why I got into Indian food when I came to the States was I just quickly realized I was actually, before I came here, I did mostly Asian food. So I was Thai and Vietnamese trained. And I did a lot of, I also like spent a year doing French cuisine, like back
Sure,
in India. So
sure.
it was in, I had like a total different food background, and I had some Indian food experience from an amazing restaurant back in Delhi. So when I came to the States, and then
When
I
was
was
this?
on
When
a,
did you come to the
this
States?
was 2013.
Okay.
So I went to Johnson and Wales. Um, I was there for a year, came out. I I was a sous chef back in India, and I had to start back as a line cook. So that like blew my mind firstly, and I was definitely scared and stressed because I had to also deal with my visa situation because I was on a student visa and I needed a company to sponsor me. Um, and I felt at the time that the only way I can really outlive the whole visa situation is to get into Indian food and sort of create a mark in Indian food. So I had like a vision for myself, and I really had to learn um, the way America eats Indian food. I mean, I was naive at the time, to be honest. I thought that was the path for me. So I got into Indian food, and um, the minute I was like in restaurants, I realized like it's insane. The ingredients are like so terrible. You're using canned tomatoes. You're using like ginger garlic that's made like a week old, and then you just there's millions of shortcuts, and that's where I got serious about it. Um, and then there were, of course, there's modern twists and turns um, through there. So it was, I think it was a combination of the visa situation, me missing, my culture, and once I got in, I realized how messed up it is. It the Indian food is not has been so severely bastardized that I was like pretty much shocked. And I'm trying. I want to be that play that role as a chef. That no, this is not how we eat back home, completely not, and that we are way more advanced. Like if you go to Mumbai or Delhi and you see the kind of food that's churned out, and w- I just feel like the US is still like backward, like severely backward when it comes to Indian food. So I definitely did that fight for like 3.5, 4 years.
When you think about Indian food that gets presented at, um, I struggle to use the word high level because like what does that actually mean? That you know we could argue that till forever,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's part of my question. But there's this sense that I've experienced from um, someone can make a incredibly well made lentil dish,
Mm-hmm.
and they take that lentil dish and they put one spoon of it onto a canapé spoon, and they put that
Mm-hmm.
on a plate, and that's fine dining Indian food. You know,
Right.
because there's this sense of layering flavors and things cooked for a long time, and
Uh-huh.
just like and so presenting it in a way that is um, modern or small or in a way where you
Mm-hmm.
can have multiple servings of
Right.
it doesn't always work with Indian food. But then at the
Right.
same time, it's like I think you and I can both acknowledge that like when you have the opportunity to serve someone multiple things, you have just more opportunities to show them, what you can do
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
chef. And so I guess how do you this is like a personal question because I
Right.
struggle with it all the time. So like how do you grapple with because on the other end, if you were to take all of the ingredients that were in that dal dish,
Mm-hmm.
remix them in a way that actually presents well, still holds the
Right.
integrity of that idea, you instantly get labeled as, oh, well, you're bastardizing this thing. You know what I mean? Even
Right,
though
right,
you're
right.
actually trying to push the food forward and, quote
Right.
unquote, elevate it. Whether it needs to be
Right.
elevated or not is another story. But like, how do you grapple with that? Because it's something that I just like. My head spins every time I try to think about it.
I've just firmly I firmly believe that good food is good food. It can you can make a dal, like you can puree it, you can freeze it, you can do whatever, but once it hits my tongue and I'm happy and it makes me, maybe it gives me nostalgia, it creates like an amazing food memory, and I'm just like amazed by how it tastes. I think you've won that battle. I think with like regional cuisine, what happens, and I think I'm sure like our Asian friends would attest to that as well, is we want to hold on to, oh my God, this is my maki dal, and this is how my mom, or this is what I had in Delhi, and this is exactly how it should be. I think we have to like let it go, or we're not going to progress. I mean, growing up, I remember eating these like North Indian curries with like an inch of oil that would like float on top, and
Yeah,
that was considered like, that's how it's called rogan.
sure.
That oil on top, and you have to have rogan when you have that goat curry or whatever. And but today I'm going to have acid reflux. You
Yep,
know,
yep.
so like the new I don't know if it's a new generation or the way we eat today. We want to incorporate like a more balanced diet. I'm probably not going to do that. I think that is what is modernization to me. I don't really, I really appreciate if chefs are pushing the boundary, and they're, like using Indian flavors, and they're just, they're changing the way it looks and texture or whatever. I think that's totally fine, as long as you're not just. I think there's a line from that where it gets to pretentious, right?
Sure.
Once you don't even understand, if you're not like really tasting it, and you don't understand if the food is actually like delicious or not.
Yeah, it's like you have to respect those that came before you, but that doesn't mean that you can't. There's a quote, and the people who get the newsletter know exactly what quote I'm talking about. I'll put it in the show notes if I remember it, but it's
Okay.
something to the effect of like the people before us showed us the way, but it's not
Hmm.
on them to do the next part. You know what I mean? It's on
That's
us.
absolutely
It's
right.
on us to do the next part. And it's not to say that we be the bratty teenager who just says, screw you, mom and dad. Like I'm gonna go do whatever, because you lose so much in that process. Like
Right.
you're telling yourself that you're gonna start from zero, which is so silly. Because it's like,
Hmm.
why would you, if you have all this advantage of knowledge, why would
Hmm.
you not build on that? Which I think is interesting. But then there was this other point that I hope that we can see, and this could be happening in small microcosms that I don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
know about, but I want to see more people being confident naming their own dish. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like I'm thinking through like um, like duck à l'orange. Like
Right.
people know what that entails. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's like, because I think now if people were to write that on some sort of menu, it would be duck, orange, onion,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the slashes. You know what I mean? When in
Right.
reality, it's like you say duck à l'orange, or you say risotto, and people know exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
like. Where when is that going to come back into style, or I guess, or when are people going to have the confidence to start to name their own dishes again? Because I think that there's this idea that who gave you the authority to name your own dish? It's like, well, I made it. It's like
Yeah, right.
and so I hope we certainly see more of that. You mentioned wanting to branch out and
Mm-hmm.
explore different cuisines, and you have background in other food, not just Indian food or Thai food. What would you see? How would you define success in branching out? Is it adding more stuff to your repertoire? Is it opening a concept that actually doesn't have any ties to Indian food? You would be like, "Yep, I conquered another cuisine. I did a good job."
Right.
How do you define that, or what resources have been helpful as you've been trying to expand?
I think when I got into the industry, uh, probably like 14, 15 years ago, I think the goal for me was to just make amazing food. I had the curiosity to understand how do they flip that pizza and how do you make cake? Like it was just amazing that how do you just have a batter and you put it in the oven and it comes out and it's like fluffy and nice. So I had that curiosity in me constantly, and I felt like I had lost it like somewhere in between because it was repetitive. I was trying to be creative with the same kind of ingredients. Um, I felt like I had a border around me. Oh no, you cannot use grapeseed oil. We don't use it in our cuisine. Try you doing something with like sesame or whatever. So I was tired of that. And then when I went on Chopped, um, oh, we'll name you the Spice Mistress. How's that? And I didn't really want it, but I just like went along with it. So that's another thing with these TV shows. They can like, they need to typecast people immediately. And then um, I realized, wow, Indian food is not the only thing I like to cook. Like I can do like kick-ass like curries, and I can do so much more. And I'm not gonna allow this country to just like put me in a box, which they love to do. And I don't care. Like maybe if I had just stuck to Indian food in all these years, I would have probably had my own restaurant. But I chose to just again follow that passion of that curiosity of understanding other herbs and other flavors. So I that's when the food truck happened, and I could just play with whatever ingredient I wanted. I didn't have any boundaries, but the nature of the food truck was it was healthy food. So
Can you put
that's
that
I
on the
think
timeline for us, when the food truck happened, and give a little bit of backstory on that for everybody that doesn't
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
that chapter for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had left Junoon and I joined the Breslin, which is another Michelin-star restaurant headed by April Bloomfield. And I learned so much about like ingredients and choosing the right ingredient and honoring that versus Indian food has a different philosophy of cooking where we often don't really worry about like is the fish cooked perfectly or we've like completely like like murdered the
Yeah,
goat or whatever. So
yeah.
it was a total change for me, and it was so good that I could like get the both best of both, like understand flavors as well as learn, like really focus on great techniques. And during that time, I was, someone from um, Seattle, who was an ex-manager at Amazon, reached out to like collaborate and do a food truck in Seattle. And I said I don't mind doing it, but the on the premise that I have complete, like I can use whatever ingredient I want. I don't want to be typecast. I don't want to be put in a box. And that's what we did.
That's such a like dig into that a little bit because I think that there is this sense of young chefs or people who haven't had their first project before. Something comes up or something gets presented to them or they get connected to someone and it almost becomes like that wolf in the suit, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna take you for a ride. They're gonna completely just label you, like you said, put you in a box. So like if someone like what advice do you have for people as they're starting to get these opportunities, because it seems like you really like dug your feet in and said, like this is I'm going to do this, and you like confidently presented almost, but it's not like this arrogant thing, right? It's almost like
Right.
it's a negotiation, right? So how can
Hmm.
maybe my question should be like, how can people negotiate better, or what should people keep in mind as they're negotiating with these opportunities?
Right. Um, I think it's very important when you get presented an opportunity that you're not sure of whatever. I think you definitely ask them for some time, come back home, and just like spend a few minutes like writing down the pros and cons. And I definitely suggest like calling a mentor or talking to someone who's been in the industry for a while. I mean, there are two sides to it. Sometimes it can go like, you don't want to be influenced by someone else's life path. I also, so you have to choose your mentor like wisely. And if you see that there are things that maybe it's like your paycheck or your something that like maybe I say that I can only do work 5 days a week, like I'm not going to kill myself or something. I think however hard the conversation is, have it before you sign the contract. And most likely, like a lot of times, if they really want you, there'll be a middle ground there for sure.
So running this business that was, you know, food trucks in my experience, and I worked on a food truck, like I would run
Hmm.
shifts on a food truck. I didn't own a food truck business, but it is different than a pop-up or a restaurant. Like it is this kind of middle ground, like, but it seems to be still this very attractive, business venture, as either beta testing a
Hmm.
concept or we're actually going to scale this and we're going to have 8 of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
trucks. So I guess learnings from food truck life. Would you do it again? Pros and cons. I guess if someone ends up finding this interview and says, Aarthi is going to be my mentor, what if you
Right.
had to have that phone call with someone now, like what would you share with them?
Yeah. I think you're right about a food truck being a great space to test a concept. It's you can you cannot like just hang on to it for like years. If you have a plan in mind where you're from a truck, I'm moving on to a space, or uh, there is opportunity to like do more. But I think like from one truck, if you do more trucks, you're diluting um, your what's that called? Like you're diluting the need for you. If 400 people come to your truck at XYZ location, if you have two trucks, most likely 200 people come to one and 200 go to the other, wherever whichever
Sure.
one is close to them. So from that point of view, I don't see like a huge scalability with. Um, I mean, I'm sure like there are different models to it. Like,
There are
uh,
exceptions to all these
yeah,
pieces
yeah,
of
there are
advice,
exceptions
but it's like you want to
to.
keep that exclusivity factor. Like it's got to
Right,
be
right,
cool
right.
still. If it loses the
Yeah,
cool, it's not. Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. And also I also learned that it's just as difficult as and it's just as expensive as opening a restaurant, maybe a little less uh, in the beginning, but then there are a lot of challenges that you're dealing with. You're still paying rent wherever, you can't just park it anywhere. wherever you park, and they're like government appointed like parking spots. You can't just like show up in any neighborhood or so. So those are things to keep in mind. And I've also seen that it seems to be a very family oriented venture. I think we were definitely an exception, where everybody's in, so the money stays in the because it can be like some days, a city like Seattle, oh my God, like if it rains, you're getting no clients. So it's based off like because it's based off like the weather and uh, the kind of the neighborhood you go to. If uh, they they don't eat like whatever you're trying to offer, there's a high chance that you may not like. So it's like a restaurant, but you also have to have a commissary. That's another thing that people forget. Like you cannot cook everything on the food truck. You have to cook it at the commissary, then take it with you. You need to have someone who knows how to drive a truck. That's so keeping all these things in mind. I think for me, a restaurant is probably much easier because you have to go to just one place. You're not worried about like trying. You have to fight for parking. You have to get on the website like at 12:01 a.m. and then like search for parking, and it's such like an insane. I didn't realize like it would be so crazy.
You're
Um,
ruining the movie Chef for everybody in the best way, like in the
I'm
best way.
so
Like,
sorry. I'm so
no,
sorry.
I love the practicalities of it because it really is this.
Yeah.
It's like this very targeted version of. I think we've all seen those friends of ours who can host a great dinner party, and then you hear those people at the dinner party say you should be a chef, or like
Yeah.
someone bakes something nice for a party and they say you should open a bakery, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
are
Yeah.
you sure? Because it's like you just said a list of 8 things that people who watch the Chef food truck movie and they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
this romantic idea of like, I'm going to start this thing and it's going to be amazing and I'm going to sell out Miami. It's just
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
it I'm not saying this to be discouraging either. I'm
Right. Right.
saying this of like, go into it with the knowledge that this is what
Yeah.
you can expect. And I don't know, like call it being a glass half empty kind of
Yeah.
perspective on it, but it's just like I would rather have that information than get slapped in
Right.
the face with it once I start. I just
Yeah.
think that it's so you, in your experience, you mentioned that you don't want to run a food truck forever. There's certainly friends of mine who own food trucks who can attest to
Hmm.
that. Is there a good, again, trying to arm people with information, what is like the optimal time to do a food truck project in your mind, where it's like you have enough time in the market where people can see who you are and what you do, but it's not too much where you're running this thing and you hate it, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, come
Yeah.
on, let's get it moving.
Um. A timeline can be, it's so difficult to say. I think for us, I think hit it off really in the beginning as well. Beginning itself, we would, I think we got a lot of like people like saw us and they heard about us. So I think after a year, um, we were able to get on, um, we could have done a restaurant if we wanted to. So it really depends on like visibility, your idea, unique, all that kind of stuff. Now, if there are like 10 other burger trucks, it's hard to get noticed. It might take like 3, 4 years. So you have to know if you have to kind of figure out if you're ready to do it or not. Yeah, there's flexibility. Maybe you can take a month off, like during, like, I don't know, during when it's like winter or something. And most likely, a lot of trucks take like time off for like a couple of months. Um, so there's like some added like bonus to it, uh, 1 or 2 things. But yeah, if you want to be there in the long haul of it, expect like any restaurant, like 3, 5 years probably,
Sure.
um, for sure.
When you're and I'm going to do this in an industry context, and then we can talk more about just like overall in general. When you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to young chefs, whether it's you're looking to hire for a gig that you're doing, or You're
Mm-hmm.
wanting to bring on someone to help you with a new project, and you're interviewing that person. You're having maybe that first conversation. Maybe they've done a stage working shift with you, and you're sitting down at the end of that, and you ask them questions. You can give some examples of questions you ask if you want. What do you look for in their answers or how they answer questions?
I usually like to put them to work immediately, um, and then ask questions. So definitely want to see how you move in the kitchen, how you're talking to, um, it's like a first date, right? How do you talk to
Exactly.
like, you can't figure out everything. Like all the bad stuff comes out later, maybe. But I've also grown to realize that we're all human beings. I have my flaws, and um, people will have theirs. But I think putting people to work and first figuring out if they can, move around the kitchen, they can use a knife, they clean mostly, and then like sitting down and asking about. I think from city to city, it's so different. Like
New
New
York
York City,
specifically, I think in your
yeah,
mind, yeah, you and I agree. New York's a different beast,
yeah,
completely different beast. Because people will move to New York interested in food, and they'll be able to dedicate their entire life
right,
towards your project. And as you move outside of New York, it's just not the case. People want time with their families. People want their weekends to go
right,
hike. People want maybe more money, like
yeah,
than
yeah,
the
yeah,
person who's going to come and work for you for free because they're just so hungry and passionate. I
right.
completely in agreement with you. Like, what else do you
But
notice as it
yeah.
varies?
Um, I think kind of trying to find out a little bit about their goals and what they want. Actually, recently I just spoke to a cook that I worked with like a few years ago, and I asked him, "Oh, are you interested in a cook position at my new the new gig that I'm at?" And he's like, "I can get money anywhere. I'm looking for growth." And I was like, "What?" I was so proud of him.
Yeah.
Also, he's like, anybody can pay me this, XYZ. I just want to like grow. And I think as a chef, sometimes we forget that. We're like, oh, we just need someone to fill in a spot and who can just like work and go home. I'm talking like New York terms. This is how like
Sure.
chefs talk here. Like we just need to fill in like a pocket. And I think I see if they I think if someone has a little bit of who wants to grow a little bit, learn more, ask them if they're curious. I think if um, you work with people who have similar curiosity, they won't be afraid when you give them a new project that's like out of what they usually do.
So I'm
So
also maybe hearing in that answer that it's if I'm a cook that's interviewing with you, and maybe maybe it's not with you, maybe it's just a general principle,
right.
like, don't be afraid to share that you're curious in other
Oh,
things,
right,
or share, right, like, would you agree with, like, hey, I'm actually interested in getting a chance to butcher. I noticed that you guys do a lot of
right,
in-house
right,
butchery
right,
stuff. Like, is that a possibility somewhere down the line, like as I progress through the stations? Like, a lot of people
right.
don't feel like they can ask that because it will be
Yeah, yeah.
perceived as a negative, but I think you're telling me that it can be an immense positive.
It's a huge positive because we want cooks to say how they truly feel. I would appreciate if a cook said, "I'm here for the money and I need to make X, Y, Z." I'll be more appreciative of like the honesty. Or someone says, "I'm really here because I know your butcher program is like phenomenal and I want to be a prep cook and probably like in a few months like move on to the butcher station." But also you have to have it's so cutthroat, like nothing gets handed to you. um, if you spend a few minutes after your shift, or even like maybe during a shift or during a break, like hang out at the station that you enjoy, like, or keep observe what they're doing. And the day someone calls out, like, hey, I can I can kind of, so um I think it's not the best practice that kitchens have, but I think would you agree that it does help immensely?
Sure. I think there's pros and cons. Again, this is like the theme of this episode, right? Like there's pros and
Right.
cons to both. I think that, certainly moving to Seattle, I did find that there was this lack of, um, call it an intensity, call it focus, call it like,
Hmm.
when you're in New York, you're trying to either shoot for an accolade, a la a Michelin star or a New York Times review, or you're trying to beat the other person across the street, usually, right?
Hmm.
Because like you
Yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah.
it's like you're trying to get foot traffic away from you're
Yeah,
competing, right?
yeah.
Like there's this competition. And I think what that can lead to by proxy is innovation, these signature dishes, moving certain types of cuisines forward,
Right.
attracting the best talent, like all these other things come as an amazing
Hmm.
benefit to these things that, could be perceived as negative because it results in, you know, mistreatment of the staff, or,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
crazy long work hours, or people going into debt because they can't pay their bills because they're working for free at this place. All these
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
things
yeah.
come with that. Um, and then I think, Seattle can, or any other city that's not a, a large metropolitan, usually like the Michelin cities, right? Like it falls victim to the other extreme, where it's like you get
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
complacent. Like you're talking about all these shortcuts that people take. You're all of a sudden buying pre-chopped garlic when you could kind of buy fresh garlic and peel it and chop
Right,
it
right, right.
yourself. Um, but your team happens to have an incredible quality of life. They can raise a family, like they're working 45 hours a week instead of
Yeah.
65 hours a week. um, and so it's like I'm constant, and I fear sometimes, as we're getting to this place of like wanting to have this coziness, that we're going to lose this thing that ultimately pushes the industry forward and gets
Hmm.
more people excited to join the industry. Because if we
Right,
have
right,
all
right.
these restaurants where everybody's just hunky dory and it's amazing,
Hmm.
um, like it's almost like I don't know. I don't know if you were this type of kid growing up, but like, um, it attracts the misfits, like the people who don't fit in
Right.
anywhere else. And so it's like if we end up descending to the mean, like we search for this common denominator, we're gonna lose that, and then it's gonna be bad. And
Hmm.
so it's like, but then you don't want people to feel like they can't speak up and ask for a better quality of life, or any of these other sorts of things. So it's like I juggle both. Like I try to juggle
Hmm.
both, and I like I said, I see the benefits and the downsides of both schools of thought, and it's
Hmm.
like you looking at them more in levers that you can pull versus
Right.
like hard rules. Like if you need to turn
Hmm.
up the heat a little bit and you want to go for the accolade, like what's required to
Right,
do
right.
that, have a conversation with your team, say this is what we're going to
Hmm.
go for. um, or on the I think we've seen it go the other way, where it's like, um, the dishwasher breaks their or sprains their ankle, and the fish cook call no shows, and you all just happen to execute a Friday night service at more people than you're used to, and you can do it. And then all of a sudden chef says, or the general manager says, like, that's what we're going to do for the next month. Like we're a
Yeah, yeah.
5-person kitchen team now. We used to be 7, but you guys did it with 5. So then it's like, that's what we're going to do. I just don't think that's productive, because it's like you have to see
Right.
that's your limit, but then you have to back off from there, because you want
Right,
to be
right.
humming along. You don't want to be
Well,
redlining the entire
yeah.
time.
So, I mean, just as someone who's lived in like tier two cities like Orlando, Seattle, and
Yep.
also lived in New York, I can like tell you, and of course, New York, I've been to so many restaurants. Today, if you see the same restaurants that like ill-treated their or who said, you know what, instead of a 7-person team, we're just going to cut down because yeah, we can kind of do it and just like apply band-aids to like fix temporary problems. You see that they don't grow as a company, that or they're stuck or they're um, something always goes wrong.
They'll have the
So
whole staff turnover, right? Like, and that's
yeah,
such a shitty place to be.
constantly
Yeah, yeah.
and you're stressed as a chef. So I think I've seen like there's definitely proof that um, that behavior does not mean your restaurant grows. It does not. You can, the quality of how you work behind, like, shows in your food, shows in your customer interactions, shows in the reviews. So I think restaurants overall, I think if you don't have the budget to execute whatever, then do a quick service joint. Like, you don't have to buy $32 like plates. Buy IKEA plates. Like, it's okay. But then I think your primary focus has to be like, treat the team well, pay them as much as you can. Uh, give them. It's very important to give them balance, and I think restaurants are definitely understanding that, like, benefits, etc. Because why why does the food industry have to be like this, crazy job for people who have, like, I don't know, issues? If
Totally.
I
Yep.
don't want to say that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
why can't it just be like um
Like being a
any
bank
other,
teller,
yeah,
you know?
like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
can. And I think restaurants are understanding that, and the ones that actually treat their team well and provide them like the other extra stuff, you see them, they're the last people standing. I think the pandemic is um showcases that, like, people come back, they're willing to do whatever they can to help the restaurant, like, just like, grow. The ones who didn't care about the employees, they're not there anymore. Most of them are not there anymore.
And maybe that's, the bow on the end of that loop is that, but you can do right by how you run your business and attract the best talent, because
Yeah,
it's almost like you don't want the person who wants to just be strung out on work to be your line cook. Like,
right.
yes, they're gonna crush it. They might do an amazing, but the second that the next restaurant comes around that's better than you, they're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
jump
yeah.
ship and they're gonna
They're
go there.
gone.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So they're gonna bounce. And so it's almost like you can do all these things that we're acknowledging are really great industry moving
Hmm.
benefits, but then all, because I think it comes, business owners have this sense of, I'm gonna lose something if I do that. I'm gonna lose. And I think your point about, the pandemic being able to be this, um, I hesitate to use the word filter because it's not true. Like, it didn't, a lot of people went out of business that were running great businesses, so
Hmm.
it's not to say that only the bad guys went down, but
Right, right, right.
it did cause a lot of people who were, overextended on their business, or they set up business models that weren't profitable, like they didn't survive. And it's like that's a, you could look at that as a failure or a learning moment, like, next project we're going to be much more business savvy when we go into this kind of
Hmm.
project. So it's just interesting to see. You sent through a topic that has big sister energy for sure, and it is what immigrant kids should and shouldn't do. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, as from your perspective.
um oh my God, there's I I mean, I wanted to talk about it, but I'm trying to, like,
No,
just gather my thoughts
it's okay.
on
It's okay.
and so I think, as an immigrant, once you get into this country and you're not, I think the first thing that hits your confidence is you don't speak the way an American speaks, and you feel like that puts you don't sound as intelligent, or it just puts you, like, at the bottom of, like, the cesspool or something. Um, I think somewhere you cannot let that happen to you, because that low confidence just carries on for years and years, and even when you start doing better, like, people can sense that. And I think I'm firsthand. I've experienced it myself. Like, people can sense that. Oh, you know what? We can take her for a ride, or we can. I think America is a country where you have to be bold and you have to be loud. People do not respect someone who's like soft and like meek. They just take it as a weakness, and then before you know it, you like years go by and um, you've been used like in an incorrect like way. Another thing is the whole visa situation. Yes, it is. It's very scary. It's stressful because you're at the beck and call of like the company that you're working with. But it does not. I mean, I think if you're a very good worker, you really know your work in and out. You're punctual. You're doing what you think a good cook, a good chef, etc. has to do. Do not be afraid um, of your employer. Like you can talk your terms, you can talk about money. I think a lot of immigrant chefs are scared. They're like, you know what, whatever they pay me, I'm fine with it as because they're sponsoring my visa. That's not how it is. Like if you're worth XYZ, I think it's okay to talk about it. It's um, okay to suggest changes and hold your ground. Uh, I think a lot of immigrant chefs and like people from the industry feel like, you know what, I'll say things when I get my green card because I don't want to like jeopardize um, growth. I think uh, unless you say things, you're not going to grow too. So, like standing your ground is very crucial, and a lot of us are just so afraid that we'll lose our job or we'll be sent back home. It's not really that easy. Like that just doesn't happen. Um, also, I think um, as I mean, as my life is testament to, I had a student visa to finally getting my permanent residency like a couple of years ago, that it can happen and you have to be informed really well, like read the law, like talk to lawyers constantly. Don't do it like just before your visa is going to expire. Like be very well informed, um, and don't let it stress you. Like for the rest of the year, you're just thinking about, oh my God, my visa, my visa, my visa, but you're not acting on it. So be informed, know what the new rules are, the new laws, they keep changing. Just read as much as you can. And um, if your company is not treating you well, for example, um, I mean, it's hard to say. It's tough to say, but you have to figure a way out of like finding. You got to like move, because then if the company's not treating you well, high chances are you're not even going to be. You're not going to grow, and
Right.
that's it's like basically deterring what you're trying to do.
And
So.
there's no pride in that, right? Like people stay in positions like that from a sense of pride. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
but what I'm hearing you say is that you're actually hindering yourself, like you're
Yeah,
sabotaging yourself by
you're
doing that,
sabotaging
and
yourself.
that's nothing to be proud of, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah, okay.
And you're stuck in like you're out of time. People are like growing around you, so don't let a visa like not let you grow. Like that's like my big that there are like big companies that also sponsor visas. Like I think we sometimes completely forget that, like the Plaza Hotel will, like you don't have to always go to um like super small companies and then work for like half of what you deserve and just live like hand to mouth. That's you I think like knowledge is power as well as um being confident,
And there's
which
also,
we
well,
yeah,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Which we
no,
Well,
it's
I was going to say that there's also this element that you strung throughout that advice, which is patience, right? Like,
oh yeah.
don't think that it has to be this thing. Like, of course, there's a sense of like, I want it now, I want it now. But
Hmm.
from what you're sharing, it's like play the long game, like
Yeah, yeah.
try to be like think long term about your own personal sense of things, but then it's also like if you have these other ambitions to get like a permanent residence, like your behavior should map to that, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
your actions should speak in those in line with those goals.
Right.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we as immigrant chefs just focus on like maybe the permanent residency and then don't grow and don't learn new things. So then you're stunting yourself like immensely, and what happens is you're not relevant. Like when you no longer become relevant. You're just doing the same thing constantly. So even if you go back to your country, and I'm telling you, India right now, it's absolutely insane. They're paying the same as they would pay over here. It's
Wow.
growing so rapidly. Like restaurants are making like way more than they make like over here because I don't know, like this when I recently went to India, my the paychecks are very similar to it is over here. So they're doing um like immensely well. So don't think that if you, at least if you've gathered knowledge and even if you have to go back, you have something to show and you can like get these high paying jobs. And US is not the end all be all. They're just I know chefs have like gone back and they've opened restaurants in Mumbai, now they're in 50 best,
Yeah. Yeah.
restaurants in the world. So having a bigger vision and not being like that's how it was for me. I'm like, if I don't get the right visa, whatever, I'll just go home and I'll start over. It's hard, it might sound hard, but I knew I had learned a good amount to like take back home. So,
No, makes a lot of sense. I want to jump into rapid fire questions real quick because
okay.
I know you wanna head to dinner soon. Um, let's see. Is there a book that's been particularly impactful for you, whether it's cooking related or business related or self development related, or even you had a great fiction book you read at a restaurant that got you through a hard time.
um, I'm constantly like trying to read like self-help is like my jam, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
I so in our industry, I think you can get super stressed and you forget about like mental wellness. And I try to use the books um, to like kind of get me out of that zone and remember that there's more to life beyond like just that mechanical go to work, shower, come home, that sort of thing. So there are a handful of books I think would be like Think Like a Monk, which I recently read, was pretty great. Um, then the 5 a.m. Club, which has got some cool techniques about how you start your day. That's where you're using it talks about like the first hour when you wake up, like you work out a little bit, you use some time to write your goals down, and then you also use a little bit of your time to just think and like meditate and think about what you want to do or grow in life. I think these have been pretty impactful at the moment. And like food related, I would say um, I've been really into like I wanted to learn like pizza crust, so I have mozza
Yep.
and yeah, so I think they have some really great like pizza dough recipes. Yeah, so that's
Cool. No, that's awesome. When when you go and visit India, and I'll let you pick the city. What's like
mhm.
your first meal, or what's like the thing that you crave where you're like, thank goodness I'm back. I can eat X.
I think if I go back to my city, Bombay, the first thing I want to do is I don't want my mom to get upset, but I do want to have chaat, like
Yep.
street chaat.
Yep.
Of course, my mom's cooking as well. I love her fried fish, but I love like pani puri and like sev puri. So I just absolutely want to like gorge on that.
Totally. What's one thing that you've changed your mind on in recent memory? If something comes to mind.
I've changed my mind on um, not being very rigid with anything, like taking others' opinion, like thinking, okay, that can work too, not saying uh, maybe something like in the kitchen where if I do cut an onion a certain way and someone else is doing it a different way, it's okay as long as the job is done and it looks all right. Like, not like, I think that also adds on to like micromanaging things. So um, I think the last couple of years there's been a change in that, which I think I was struggling with. I felt like my way or the highway, it doesn't work like that.
You somehow get a call right after this interview that you've just won an all expenses paid trip to eat at your dream restaurant. And when you get
Hmm.
there, there's someone you've always wanted to talk to waiting to have dinner with you. What is that restaurant and who is that person?
I know the person is Oprah
Hell yeah.
because she's the first woman who motivated me. I come from a country that's very sexist,
Yep.
very like anti, like there. I mean, I was put down based on my skin color all my life. Like for 25 years, I thought I was super ugly until I came to the States. So when I would watch Oprah on TV, I was like, oh, there's a person who's my skin color and who's so impactful to the world. So I think she's the one who l- like literally drew me out of like believing that there is like a future for me. The restaurant, uh, I think I would like to like go on a walk in like Vietnam and like
Yeah.
just get like bowls of like noodles and like
Yeah.
grilled beef and like um just like eat like street food. That would be it.
Dude, Bourdain took Obama to get noodles, and Aarti's gonna
Yeah,
take Oprah to go get noodles.
Oprah.
that's that's the move. Uh, one more question, and then I wanna give you a couple. I want to give you space to talk about the gig that you're working on, and you know how other
Okay.
people can get in touch with you. But you shared a lot of really impactful advice. I have this question of, and you can tell me I've already shared it, but I ask, what do you think chefs can be doing better to help the next generation? And if you have any other advice to share, I'd obviously be curious to hear your thoughts there.
Um, I think for Indian chefs, I would say there's no such thing as a secret recipe. Like share your knowledge, try to make it like simple for them to understand. If you're teaching someone who has no knowledge of spices or food and that happens, you can like kind of relate it to something that they're familiar with. So being more open with sharing, especially like regional cuisine knowledge. Um, I think that's important for like the new cooks, or a lot of these amazing dishes might even die. Like we may never, there's a high chance and that's literally happening with Indian food. So I also went to this city called Lucknow. It's in the north of India, and they don't have any tikka masala. They don't have these typical Indian curries. And I learned so much, like learned about spices, but they're so secretive about what they put in their gravies, their curries, and the way they do things. I literally had a curry that was made of just bone marrow. Like I didn't know that
Whoa.
we're just as cool as the French. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was so amazing, so delicious. But when I asked the cooks, like, what did you put in it? Like, how do you like extract the marrow? They would just, because they were like perfect, like cylinders in the sauce. Um, they were just this is how we do it. Like we do it at 3 a.m. in the morning, so no one knows how it's made. So now the world does not know about it. And after your restaurant closes or whatever happens, it might never, no one will ever know about it. So I think being more like generous with knowledge is like very important for us as chefs. Not just, I think a lot of us also push like this is your job. Like you're supposed to like chop onions. Like if they're curious about something, or just call them over to your desk or wherever you're cooking. Hey, I'm making this XYZ sauce and it's got this. Um, I think that's very crucial.
Where do you think that so I was just trying to like determine in my brain because it's such a zero sum way of thinking of keeping your thing to yourself, but I was trying to figure out how to justify it, and the place where my head immediately went was, there's that anecdote of ideas are shit, it's all about execution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I think there's something that deters people from sharing their recipes or their techniques because you're sharing the execution part. Like you're actually
Right.
telling someone how to do the thing. And
Hmm,
there's
hmm,
this
hmm.
fear that, well, there's this idea of this bone marrow curry dish. And it's like,
Hmm.
it's cool in theory that someone can make this, but I don't know how to execute it. And I think that there's maybe this fear that if I tell someone how to execute it, they're going to, put me out of business or all these sorts of things that people get scared of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, there's this like this deeper thing where it's like there's the
Hmm.
legacy. It's like you have the idea, you do the execution, and then if you do it well, there's a legacy to it, and it can live beyond you.
Hmm,
And
hmm,
I think
hmm.
maybe people are missing that from what you're saying, where it's like it's not that it's not that anybody wants to steal your bone marrow dish. It's that we're
Right.
gonna lose this amazing technique, and someone else's because it's not like they're uh,
I mean,
extracting
imagine,
ingredients from space or using
right,
something that
right,
the ingredients are here. Someone's going to put
right.
that together in this
I mean,
way.
imagine that dish. I've never seen it outside of,
Yeah.
I've never
Yep.
seen it in Mumbai. Like, it's not even left that little town.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Like,
That's so interesting.
think about that's, I think, the I think the Indian culture is if we don't share it, then someone else, for example, like yoga, right? We were so secretive about it. It's like this and that. It's like a way of life, and now people are like literally like banking on it, and they're not Indians. So why not it just be us? Like
Sure.
let us help grow our grow our culture and let the world like see it through our eyes instead of like someone else who like probably has half-baked knowledge but they see the potential of that idea.
Well, because you give them the tools to actually do it well. When you're
Yeah,
open and
right.
sharing, you can educate and be a part of that growth versus, you know, just let them see some people doing some stretches in an interesting way and then they
Yeah,
decide
yeah,
to
yeah,
come
yeah.
back and call it yoga.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
so so
And then
interesting.
that's the same thing that's happened with like Indian food in the States, I think. There are
Yeah.
only those 8 dishes. Most of the times it's not good. Like,
Yep.
so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So floor is yours. Like any other topics you want to discuss or bring up, or things you want to chat through. Otherwise, you can certainly feel free to share your gig. I know that we haven't caught up in a while, so I'm curious to hear
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
what you're
yeah.
working on, and people that want to get in touch with you, because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of interest in either asking you questions or potentially working with you from this.
Right. Yeah. Um, so during the pandemic, I tried a lot of different things. It gave me the opportunity to really like just explore and take like tiny risks. So I was like selling cookies. That's what I started with, and then I dabbled in a little bit of like infused cookies as well. So I did that for some time, and then I started getting into the whole private chef situation, and it was really interesting. And I got to meet some amazing people or talk to amazing people who wanted just like a private dinner. And I think chefs are very afraid of the whole private chef thing. Like, I don't want to lower my standard or what's the term?
It's like
I've
sell
heard
out. You don't want
sell
to sell
out.
out. You don't want to. Yeah,
Sell out. Like, I don't know. I don't even
it's
understand
so
what that
yeah.
means.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think if you're a person of color, you're like, oh, I don't want to be like a maid too. And that was one of my things. Like, I thought I don't want to be like someone's help. Um, but it's on the contrary, they actually welcome you and they think you're a high professional, and benefits are like they pay you really well, and you learn you I actually cooked for someone who uh, was a cancer patient, and the whole family was celebrating her birthday. There were like four or five of them, and she was not really feeling too good. But I made her, I made something nice for her, and she was just so ecstatic that there was a special chef that her husband like got in. So I think I was so happy to be a part of that moment, and I think, oops, sorry.
No, you're okay.
I think I got a call, which
Yeah, no,
is
you're okay.
yeah. Um, yeah, so um, I think as chefs, like it's okay. I think this whole with jobs like restaurants closing, it's okay to venture into private chef. I think the rewards are amazing. You can do any cuisine, whatever your creative freedom, plus you get to interact with your client, which never happens in a restaurant. So it's fun, and it's very rewarding. So I did that. I've been doing that the past year. Um, then consultant work, there's a restaurant called Bombay Sandwich Company, which is a vegan restaurant um, in New York City. So we kind of just created a whole new menu. So like a ghost kitchen concept where we're doing like vegan curries and vegan appetizers and desserts. It was super fun, and it also made me understand that vegetarian food can be cool, vegan food can be cool. You don't have to like just go into tofu and seitan. Like you can use vegetables as stars. You can find um, proteins that you can actually enjoy. So uh, that was really fun. And I started my YouTube channel,
So
Chef
exciting.
Aarthi Sampath. It's a work in progress. I mean, I did some really. I was definitely nervous. My first video, stuttering and scared, but I think I've learned a lot. You understand how social media really is, and you have to like dress up even when it's it's you're at home. So very different, totally different from going into a kitchen and cooking. Things are staged. You have to like understand timing. You have to think about like how it looks finally, the quality of the camera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a lot of fun. And then I was doing a lot of research in spices, and I'm getting into, I'm launching a masala, which is
Whoa.
very, yeah, and we're still working on it. So it'll be a very I mean, I got more into like Ayurveda and learning about what these spices actually do for you, apart from them being super flavorful. So it's going to be called Majestic Masala,
Okay.
um, and it's this very fragrant aromatic garam masala with like a very unique um, Ayurvedic spices that will do a ton of good for you. So, I mean, I think I'm getting into that kind of cooking as well as a chef. I really don't want to just cook food for only the tongue. Like, I want to cook also for your well-being and um, for overall well-being. So, I think this was a definite revelation for me as a chef this year.
So, I mean, you might get inquiries across that board, people who want to,
Yeah.
hire you for consulting, people who want to work on,
Oh, that'll
the
be
spices,
amazing.
the spice projects, people who want to help you with larger, private chef gigs that you might have, because I know that's how it works. The client wants you to cook
Right.
for a party because you're the chef that they know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
would you recommend people just contact you through your website, or is Instagram easier? Like, where do you want to send people to get in touch?
Um, Instagram is great. It's AARTHI underscore SAMPATH Aarthi underscore Sampath on Instagram. I have my YouTube, of course, that you can check out a lot of recipes. I also have my Beat Bobby Flay biryani, which is I think I'm gonna put it on like in a week or so. So do like and subscribe. I hate saying that, but I have to.
Gotta do it. I'm the worst at it too. But it's like it's so depressing that it works and that all we have to do is ask and people do it, and it's just it feels like a shill, you know, like it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think for us chefs it feels so strange because it feels like
Yeah,
saying leave me a good review on Yelp or like
yeah.
leave me you know, like tell your friends like hey, send that photo that you just took to your friend. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what it
yeah,
feels
yeah.
like. And it's like no, that's not what it is. It's
Right.
so different and there's it's always something to learn. Um
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And you
cool.
can, of course, email me at aarthi@aarthisampath.com. If you go on my website, aarthisampath.com, it'll direct you to my email. So you can do
Perfect.
all of that.
I have a flight to New York scheduled technically for next month. I don't think I'll be able to come next month, but I
Okay.
booked it because I had a flight credit or something. But, anyways, I'm trying to hook up with all my New York friends soon.
Oh,
So
okay.
I hope that I
Wow.
get to see you shortly.
Yeah, I would
Maybe in
love
May.
that.
Maybe not April, but possibly May.
Probably in May.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I also want to say that I'm a
Yeah.
head chef at Chinese Tuxedo.
There it
Oh,
is.
wait, so we're opening back next week. So we start trials again and just getting the team together. So
Awesome.
now, yeah, from Indian food, I'm in Chinese now. So don't let you're the only person who's stopping you from doing different things. Um, you're a chef. If you're a good chef, you can be anywhere at any, you can, food is like, it cannot just be limited to a cuisine. Good food is good food. Like the techniques, if they're solid, um, you're just replacing like ingredients. That's how I look at it as. So, if your techniques are solid as a young cook, um, yeah, the first 5, 7 years of your life, like get your techniques like 100% solid, and then you'll be like a well-rounded chef.
Preach. Thanks, Aarti, for coming on the show. I'm going to let you go to
Yeah,
dinner,
thank you
but
so
this was
much.
awesome. Thank you so much again
Hey,
for your
thank
time.
you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was really fun. Like, I got to speak so much.
Dude, that's what it's about. And people I know are just gonna geek out about your advice and your experience and yeah, it's probably like there will be an episode 2. I foresee
Yeah.
it. So
How
thanks again.
many people do you mostly do listen to you to your
Like how many?
podcast?
I mean, it
Um,
really depends. Like
approximately.
yeah, I mean you know, I'll have clips that will get, you know, 2-3 thousand views on just like the
Okay.
clip,
Oh,
which is
wow.
nice. But then like the individual podcasts also, you know, fluctuates between, you know, like 400 and 700 listens per
Oh,
episode.
wow.
Um, but you know, that's a big ask, you know, because
Yeah.
it's an hour and a half of people's time. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I find it's been valuable for me to do the clips as well as the longer episodes. And
Okay.
so, you know, it's a little bit of both. And so it's hard to really nail down. But it's
Yeah.
like the YouTube channel has almost 23,000 subscribers now. And,
Oh,
you know, I'm working
wow.
with an editor now who is, you know, helping me do more clips, which I hope to then put
Mm-hmm.
on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, so it's just it's a passion project that also, you know, it helps me and it helps my friends, you know, so it's like and I'm just so
Yeah, you're
passionate
doing
about like helping
amazing.
young chefs, and so it's just
Yeah.
it's all exciting in my mind.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's awesome. I've got to look up your YouTube.
Yeah, totally.
What's
It's just my name.
Justin?
Yeah, if you just look up
Okay,
Justin
yeah.
Khanna, yeah, that's it. It'll all be right
Okay.
there. And I'll send you all the links to everything if you want to share. And I know that you
Yeah,
said
yeah, yeah,
a lot of
absolutely.
URLs, and I know,
Yeah.
you know, we want to get the links right, and so all of that
Yeah.
is like linked below, so you don't have to hopefully worry about everybody going to the wrong
Okay.
place. So I'll take
So
care of
can
all of
I
that.
share some of those
Yeah,
clips,
the clips,
perhaps?
1,000%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So once
Yeah.
those are done, I'll make sure that to send you those links, and you can share them wherever it makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Cool, because it is a lot. It is nice to have your thoughts on topics documented like
Mm-hmm.
this, you know, where you just get to share your thoughts on X, you know,
Okay.
and that's how I kind of divvy up the clips too. So that'll be nice.
Okay.
Cool, cool.
All right.
All right,
Cool.
I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks again. I'm sorry for the
Okay.
timing. I know that was
No.
a
That's
little strange.
completely okay.
Okay,
Completely
cool.
okay.
All right,
All right.
stay tuned.
All right.
Stay
Bye.
well. See ya. What's up? Justin here again. Because, I mean, if you're still listening, you didn't not like this episode, right? And if that's the case, I'd like to think that you'd get value from the other work that I share here online. It's all focused on helping chefs and hospitality professionals perform better. If you don't have a lot of time, the best place to start is with the email newsletter that I write every single week called the 80/20 Edge. That's where I share knowledge on sharpening your skills, asymmetric upside, and exploring the industry beyond the status quo. And I say it saves time because I include all of the content that I publish that week all in one place as kind of a weekly digest of sorts. Next up, you should check out my YouTube channel for gear reviews, clips from podcasts just like this one, and documented experiences from some of the best restaurants in the world. And lastly, if you'd like to learn about my intense cohort-based professional development focused course, get coaching from me to help you make your next move, or just support the show, you can check out justinkhanna.com/support. And if you do support this show already, that's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Finally, it really does help to share a review of this show on Apple Podcasts to help the podcast universe know that people like us like shows like this. And until the next episode, my name is Justin Khanna, and I hope you have a good one.